Hello and welcome to the Make Ideas Reality podcast. In this episode, I'm talking with Daniel Jansson from Switch and Lever. Daniel shares his journey of traveling around the world and how that's influenced his creativity. And we touch on how he traveled to Italy to work with Giaco from Giaco Whatever. We talk about the toolbox excuse, how to flip not having the right tools to your advantage. And we talk about the importance of communication in your videos, communication in your social media, and more importantly, face-to-face and the importance of that. This episode is packed full of takeaways from Daniel and myself. I hope you enjoy. Let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Make Ideas Reality podcast. Today's guest could be considered quite clever as he ended up working alongside Giaco Whatever. But before he found himself in Italy, he was isolated in Turkey, living grittily. Now back in Sweden, his place of birth, he's at a crossroads to find his worth. Welcome to the show, Daniel Jansson from Switch and Lever.
And the crowd goes wild.
I was trying to think, should I say his last name in like half Norwegian, half Swedish, or should I say it in English and just say Jansson?
Jansson, or you do what everyone does and say Johansson instead because that's what they're used to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I grew up having my last name completely always not mispronounced, just completely replaced by another last name.
Well, for those who don't know, Daniel and I met sort of like all good stories on this podcast, as I always say, every single week at Maker Central. I met this big, tall Swedish guy. We started having a bit of a chat. It was a lovely, lovely chat. And I thought, what a nice dude. I'll stay in contact with him. And, it was funny because people seem to know you as well. And I was, like, everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's that guy sharing, like working with Giaco. And I was like, for one, who's Switch and Lever? And two, who's Giaco? Like, I had no idea. And so that was a big learning process for me. We stayed in contact and, here we are on the podcast. So it's awesome. Now today we're going to be talking about the toolbox excuse. That's we're going to try and talk about how to flip the idea of not having the tools that you need to your advantage and just get making. And then we're also going to try and talk about the importance of communication. That's communication in your videos, social media, and more importantly, like face-to-face, one-on-one. And, I think this is more prevalent in the COVID times because of like everyone's sort of isolated, that we kind of like a lot of us kind of forget how to actually talk to one another, and Zoom and Discord and all these other platforms exist and we can still practice this. So we'll get into that later, but I thought let's talk about our guest here for a little bit. Daniel, what do you do? Let's tell the people. Who are you and what do you do?
What do I do? Who am I?
Yeah.
Well, as you said, I'm Swedish. Actually, from the very, very north of Sweden, just below the Arctic Circle. So I'm a little bit of a polar bear, I guess. But online, I'm known as Switch and Lever, and I'm kind of I kind of struggle how to describe myself, but I think a little bit of a dilettante or a generalist. I just like making, right? I don't care if it's wood or metal or electronics, or now I've recently gotten into toy hacking, just like gluing random toy bits together just to make sculptural stuff, and the list goes on. And it's always kind of been a part of me to always have that kind of creativity, to always make something from from when I was a kid in my dad's workshop learning welding when I was 6, and then all the way up through like getting into computers and then going to design school and finding out, oh, there's so much more to workshops and I can do all this amazing stuff because I learned how to use a lathe and a bandsaw, everything that people complain that you have in a workshop that they don't have.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my journey, and then YouTube kind of came in a corner and kind of blossomed, and I realized that, hey, I really like sharing this kind of stuff as well, and not just sharing what I do, but also teaching, hopefully, and having people actually get something out of the often quite stupid things that I do.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really interesting. So I'm kind of looking where to go now, since I'm no longer in Italy. I no longer have a workshop, so I'm kind of looking at, do I want to go full time with YouTube? Do I want to make Switch and Lever and Daniel inseparable, or do I want to keep doing Switch and Lever on the side? And that's kind of where I am right now.
Inseparable.
enabler.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I really like your style of video. It's really like calm for me to watch, and like informative at the same time, with a small amount of humor, which is just, it's something really kind of pleasurable to watch. So
hello and welcome back to Switch and Lever.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact that, like you've got this whole persona of just calmness and just how things sort of come together, and that slight little bit of humor I think is really good. And one of the projects I looked at just recently, because I was just going through your list of videos, and I was like, oh, the pennyboard snow skate that you tried to make. Which actually I've tried a real snow skate, and they are super, super fun to ride.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure that one you were building was actually going to work, but it would have been so cool.
Is, I still have it. It's still in storage. I haven't had the opportunity to try it on snow yet, and I still want to make a follow-up video where it might be my last video ever, considering how probably dangerous it is, but it needs to be run on snow at least once before it's retired for sure.
Yeah, like actually you can come here and like I'll jump on my snow skate and we'll bomb some hills together.
That sounds absolutely terrific and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, people are like, what is that thing? Looks like a plastic pennyboard with 2 blocks of wood strapped to a ski. It's so good. I love it.
That's because that's what it is.
I thought a little bit before we get into our main topics. I mean, a lot of people are sort of a little bit interested in the fact that you worked alongside Jocko. Now, I know that you didn't want to talk a lot about that, but I thought I'd at least ask sort of what you wanted to share about that, and what sort of what you gained from working with Jocko, alongside Jocko, and just being around him in general.
I think, Jocko is a very interesting character, and I think just like pretty much anyone who has a YouTube persona, the person you are on YouTube and the person you are in real life is of course very, very different oftentimes. Just like the person I am on this podcast and the person I am to my flatmate is probably two quite different people
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But I think in general, it was really interesting to see what is his creative process. How does he approach projects? And oftentimes a lot of his videos, at least the videos he's known for, are these like pre-Maker Knife, the very viral videos where he blows stuff up, where he makes ridiculously dangerous knife-wielding contraptions. And to see him move away from doing those kind of videos and getting more into calling it serious maker videos might be a little bit too snooty and up your nose kind of thing, but more like actually like workshop videos that's focused more on the making rather than maybe on the end viral result. I think that was a really interesting journey to kind of go along with and see like, okay, how does he approach it? And then of course the building of his workshop and helping out with that and so forth was also a really, really cool experience. So I think I learned a lot more about how to approach things and actually see other people's creative processes, and what can I incorporate in mine, and what works obviously great for him that would never work for me. And I think it's quite important to be cognizant of that as well, to not just try to emulate what other people are doing, but finding your own voice as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Because I mean, everyone's different, and Jocko, has his own style, and you can't copy that.
No, but there are people who do try to copy. I mean, maybe most famously is when Casey Neistat blew up on YouTube. Everyone wanted to make daily vlogs that were just like him, and I think it's just not sustainable. Like, sure, you can copy anyone, but it's not sustainable, because it means you're also always trailing behind someone. You're never actually pushing yourself and pushing what you want to be and what you want to do.
Yeah, and wouldn't it become tiring to pretend to be someone you're not? Like all the time. That just doesn't.
I would think
sense.
so. I don't have that much experience with it, but I would assume so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting because when you and I met in Maker Central, you were still working in Italy, and it was. I think it was a lot of talk about obviously the Maker knife, because there was a lot of buzz about that at the time, and I mean, I think it's to be involved in that environment must have been quite eye-opening, in the same time, like just kind of cool. Like, I mean, how often do you get a chance to be involved with a project like the Maker knife and that sort of thing? I think it's really cool.
Yeah, definitely from the crowdfunding point of view, I think that was what was most interesting for me to follow. I don't mean to put down the Maker knife in any way. It's a really cool product, but I am a product designer and I am an interaction designer, and I've worked with, like, in a professional environment, actually developing products. So from that point of view, the Maker knife is a product like any other. But what sets it apart is just this, like, Jaco has a certain amount of fans and the whole maker community and people who just like really cool everyday carry stuff, etc. And to see that kind of support from the community and how you actually funnel that into an end result and into a product that you actually design, manufacture, launch, and ship, right? I think that was a very, very interesting process to follow, as opposed to just being funded by a big company and they already have factories and a pipeline set up. I think that's and to see how actually approachable that can be for makers like you and me as well, if we just have a good idea and set our mind to it.
Yeah, and just knowing that the community has this, you have the support of the community when you do launch a decent, designed product. Like, I mean, I think, I honestly think if Bernie Solo decided he was going to release his fidget spinners, like full stream, they would just go berserk.
Yeah, I've talked with him after he sent me the little chain. I don't know if you even call it a fidget spinner, but it's a fidget toy at least. I mean, it's very, very cool, and he has some really cool ideas. But I mean, he makes all of them himself by hand. It's a labor of love as well.
Yeah.
And how do you scale that up? It's really difficult. It's I think with the Maker knife, it just about made sense to go China production, because it became such a big series of knives. Like the first series was 10,000 knives. But let's say you're going to produce 1,000. Finding someone that can do that is extremely difficult and still keep the price per product low enough that people wants to buy it.
Yeah. I think it's super interesting, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Sorry, people. We're not getting into the Maker knife. You got sucked into this podcast, but thinking it was about the Maker knife. It's not, people. No, we're going to talk about the toolbox excuse, because, this is something that I think a lot of us struggle with sometimes. This came up actually in our pre-pod, and you and I were talking about this crossroads that you're at, and deciding to go full time into like YouTubing, or just still do it on the side. And you said the words like, if I'm going to go full time, I need to find a workshop. And that made me like ask you, is like, well, do you really need a workshop to go full time? Like, that seems like an excuse, and so then we got in talking about this, and I found this really interesting, and that's why we're going to talk about it today. So I found, your story interesting, and I thought maybe you could talk a little bit first about your time in Turkey and how that experience maybe made you realize that you didn't need all the fancy stuff.
Oh yeah. I think to actually tell the Turkey story, I have to dial it back just a little bit, back to Stockholm, Sweden. Because as I touched upon, I worked as a product designer, and I had access to this amazing workshop with like metal and woodworking machinery. And a lot of my videos, if you see any video of mine where there's a wooden floor anywhere, that's from that workshop. And it's a great place, and I wish I had that privately. But as that kind of job came to an end, me and my then wife decided, since she's from Turkey, why not try out Turkey? And she has a lot of connections with people who live more off-grid and want to try different things, and had a connection with people who actually had a house up, run as a collective of people, up on the side of a mountain above a small little agricultural city, far away from everything. And yeah, as you said, there were really no tools, or rather there were tools, but there were no machinery. We didn't have electricity, so we could power even a hand drill. We could charge a computer from the solar panel, but that was about it. So it gave me a kind of a newfound appreciation for, okay, what can I make that, like with my two hands, with a hammer and a chisel and a hand plane, and I had found on the flea market one of those hand cranked drills, so I could make holes into things. So that was a revelation. That was of modern machinery, just to have that drill. But just to also set my bar a little bit low, because I think I have a little bit of a hang up that things need to be perfect. Like oftentimes before making even the simplest thing, I go into CAD and I CAD the heck out of it, and I spent hours making it perfect and like measuring and like down to the millimeter. And in the end, I could just go out and just hammer some boards together, and it would be just as fine. And I think that's what I learned from Turkey, that things can be rough, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be maybe like when I made the handle for the toilet door that lacked the handle for, I don't even want to say how long they didn't have a handle on the toilet door. It was just a piece of branch that I screw into the door, and that was just fine. And it really worked with the house. It was rustic and it was gnarly, but it really worked in that environment. And if I'd gone the CAD route, I would have probably, made this really nice designed handle that would have just stood out like a sore thumb in the environment it was in.
Yeah.
So I think that was, even though I'm not in Turkey anymore, I think that was a really, really good learning experience for where I am now as well, to kind of take a step back and ask, do I really need to plan all that much for this simple thing? Maybe not.
And two, I mean, like, did you find yourself finding, excuses to not make something up there because you didn't have the tools, or did you sort of like, okay, this is necessity, so actually let's see if I can drive around this problem with not having the right tools?
I think initially, yes. Initially, because there was a little bit of a culture shock. I can speak a little bit of Turkish. I can kind of get through society in a very roundabout, hello, I'm very much of a foreigner kind of way. But I think the clash was that I don't have what I need. I like, oh, we have a chainsaw. I can cut, but the chainsaw is so inaccurate. I just want a good saw. but a chainsaw would probably do. So there was this definitely a mental hang up that I had to work through, and it took a while to actually get past it. But in the end, there's also this, I think a lot of makers can relate. There's like a finger itch. I have to do something, like just something tangible, work with my hands. It doesn't really matter what it is. It can be just, I guess that's why stress toys and fidget spinners and whatnot are so popular, because it feels like you're doing some sort of work with your hands. So eventually I started building shelves. I think that's kind of the lowest bar usually. It's like, what should I build? Just smack up a shelf on the wall. It will always be useful. And I think that really helped to kind of get those creative juices flowing as well. So in the end, ended up by building, tables and painting things and just being generally creative without worrying so much about what I was making and to what perfection I was doing it.
Yeah, because we always find excuses like why we shouldn't do something. Like it can be just the fact that the project scares us. So then we'll say like, oh, well, I don't have, that tool to actually do that project. When you could have stopped and sort of become more creative to find solutions. And I think that's an interesting point, is like, by limiting your tools, for example, putting yourself with limitations, you often become more creative. Have you had any experiences like that where you were limited and then you came up with solutions that you thought like, I would have never thought about this if I had all the fancy stuff?
That's a really good question. I haven't actually thought about that. Oftentimes when I'm in the creative space, whatever tool is the closest is the tool that gets used.
Yeah.
Sometimes with really bad effects, like when I stabbed myself in the finger with a carpet knife, just because that was what was closest to prise something off, when I probably should have gone and just gotten a screwdriver or something. But in terms of, I mean, there's this saying that like when the only thing you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But I think you can kind of look at it the back way as well. Like, okay, I have a hammer, I have a nail. What can I use as a hammer? And it doesn't have to be a hammer that you go and buy from a hardware store. Right? You can get a rock, you can get a brick, and whatever. And just having that frame of mind, I think, is very helpful to actually understand that. Okay, I don't need all this fancy equipment. I don't need what do they call, like a sliding miter saw or something, just to be able to make a cut through wood. I can just get heck, even a hacksaw. It's probably not going to do as good of a job, but it's going to get through the wood and it's going to hopefully be good enough for your application.
What about you? What about YouTube? I think a lot of people get stuck on YouTube.
Oh yeah, you need to have the best equipment, right? You need to at least have a digital SLR, or you need to have sound recording equipment and lighting equipment, or no, you don't. Break out. I know it's like the most overused thing said by creators, but break out your mobile phone, start shooting that thing.
Yeah. I mean, what did you use when you first started?
The very first video that actually started off my YouTube channel was filmed on a compact camera that I found in the school's trash bin that I fixed.
That's so awesome.
And then I upgraded to a slightly better compact camera. And it's a really good compact camera, not expensive. The Sony RX100, and I think they released like 6 upgrades to that. I'm still using the very first one that came out like 6 or 7 years ago, and that I bought secondhand off eBay.
Well, there you go, guys. Daniel from Switch and Lever is using a compact camera to film his YouTube videos. What's your excuse, people?
Can I share something sacrilegious?
You can.
I'm going to speak very close, so it's ASMR to the microphone.
Okay.
I don't release full HD video.
The world is stunned.
I know. 720p all the way.
Well, it's probably better for your bloody rendering times, I imagine.
It is. And I mean, just looking at YouTube analytics, a fair chunk, over half of my viewership is on mobile.
Yeah, right.
No one's gonna watch 4K on a mobile phone.
No. And I think that's super interesting. I mean, we get so stuck in making the videos look so great. And like even for me, like I shoot in HD. I don't shoot in 4K, even though my camera can do 4K.
Yeah.
I shoot in HD because one, I couldn't be bothered managing those file sizes because that's my
Yeah.
computer would
Tell
have a
me about it.
meltdown. And then two, like, you know, yeah, just I think it's a lot easier for me to deal with. But I think, to be honest, I'm learning experiences too, because, for example, I know that when I'm using a HD file, I can't like zoom in too much if I forgot to frame it right, when I
Yeah.
shot the video. So it also makes me a better videographer when I'm doing like later, because I remember, okay, wait a second, I've actually got to frame this shot better because realistically, I know that I'm probably going to be focusing on this
Yeah.
specific thing, and I can't afford for my video to look all blurry and pixelated because I forgot to zoom it in, or it was lazy,
Yeah.
or whatever, or just didn't know what I was doing, right? So
I think that's a good thing to be aware of as well. That like your first videos, I mean, I don't even want to go back to look at my own first videos because they are crap. There's no two ways around. Some of them have a lot of views, but quality wise, they are hard to watch. But I think we talked about this in the pre-pod as well. That I mean, we've come a long way. We've learned and we've improved our ways of making videos. And it's not because we got this better camera, better equipment, and so forth. It's because we got a better eye, we got better experience, and we actually learned step by step what we want to do as well.
I mean, I often go and look at other people's videos and see like a technique they used. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, how did they do that? And sometimes I don't, like, sometimes I just try to reverse engineer it without Googling it. And generally it doesn't work out. But I mean, but like, for example, right now I'm trying to merge two images so that like the split in the doors turns into my ass crack. And and
And you're releasing this on YouTube.
well, the ass crack is very pixelated.
Okay.
But yeah, and so I'm thinking that, like, I'm trying to like reverse engineer what I think should happen. But in hindsight, I probably need to go on YouTube and find out how to actually do that. But like, I think there's a lot of like excuses in regards to, like, I don't have the right equipment, I don't have the expertise yet.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't done a course in editing videos yet. Like,
Yeah. Like
I
I don't
never
know
did.
how to do this thing perfectly, so I shouldn't do it at all.
Right, I never did a course in my life about editing videos. I
Yeah.
just looked at other people, saw what they did, liked some things that they did, then tried to do it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think something that kind of relates to this as well is the fear of failure, right? It's the you're too afraid to fail, so you don't even try, you don't even start.
Yeah.
And I think that's crippling. Like a lot of my videos, even though I speak very confidently and I tell what I've done, or like sometimes how things should be done, sometimes how I do it, or just how it could be done, and I speak very confidently about it, but secretly that might be the first time I ever did it. So I think it might be a little bit of delusion that people who show what they do, they are experts at what they do, but oftentimes it's just like, no, they have a good disposition to be able to communicate what they do, but they might be just as clueless or even more than what you are.
I think the way they communicate, that is key, and I think that goes really well into our other topic, is communication. I mean, we're human beings. We are, it's very, very important to our like tribal survival that we communicate, clearly, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think this was an interesting, conversation you and I end up talking about in the pre-pod. Was like you had been up in the mountains, in Turkey, there, isolated, sort of, and you feel you're an extrovert, but being alone up there, like you all of a sudden needed people to be around and to talk to and associate with, right?
I think rather the opposite. I'm an introvert,
Sorry,
but
yeah, sorry, my bad.
That's fine.
I
We'll
wrote that
fix
in
that
my
in
notes.
post.
I wrote that in my notes. I wrote extrovert instead of introvert.
I think. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think we talked a bit about introversion versus extroversion, and I think fundamentally I am an introvert. I work very, very well by myself, but I'm also a human being, and I think every human being has extrovert traits. So I think you still need to have some sort of a community. And I think when I was up on the mountain in Turkey, I had the people around me. So people came and went since it was a community. So we were usually between 3 to 5 or 6 people. And sure, that was a community, but it was the same people every day in, day out. And then once a week or once every couple of weeks, we went down to the town to eat soup and buy groceries. And that was the extent of my interaction with other people. And I think that really, unfortunately, that kind of withered my mind. So I was feeling really, really poorly towards the end when I actually ended up leaving Turkey. It really did a number on my mental well-being. And in hindsight, I mean, at that point, I didn't have open eyes enough to realize that is why I was feeling like I was. But actually looking back at it and realizing, I mean, first going to Italy and having a little bit of a community there, but also I had Jaakko, I had a few friends in Italy that we talked to spend time with, but it was a little bit of the same situation, that there was a society that I was a little bit cut out of because I didn't speak the language, I didn't share the culture. So now when I'm back in Sweden, I realized that maybe I don't want to stay in Sweden because there's a lot of, I mean, that's a whole other topic, right? But I need the need of having people that I can communicate with, having people that I can share ideas with, and just in general share community with. So I think, I mean, what I spoke about Sweden, I think the importance of communication can also be hindered by language. So I'm looking at maybe I should move to the UK, or I mean even the US or New Zealand, Australia, whatever, because there I have a language I can communicate with people and actually make my voice heard and be able to listen to people and have a reasonably full understanding of what they're talking about what their experiences are.
But you do speak Swedish, right?
Jag pratar svenska, jajamän.
Yeah.
I do speak Swedish.
I was gonna say, like, it's not the fact that you're Swedish, you're unable to like communicate in Swedish. It's you're talking more about the people, right? They're quite,
exactly. So
they're quite closed. They're very private, and it's very hard to get into social bubbles. Like that's the way we have it here in Norway. You know, me as a foreigner coming into Norway, it's really, really hard. Like, you know, I feel really lucky because I've got like 1 or 2 friends, but like only one of them is Norwegian. So like, you know, like I often, it's really hard to get in to know people here. And so for you who's been traveling, you know, around the world, and communicating with different cultures and seeing how they operate, I can definitely feel you in the Swedish side of things, where you get there and you're like, hey, and they're like, who's this guy talking? Walk away, walk away.
Yeah.
Like, so, it's opposed to Italy where everyone's kissing each other on the cheek and, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference there. But
Absolutely. And I think just to fill into that, since I left my hometown and moved to study at university, even in Sweden, the majority of my community of people, of friends around me, have been international because of the profile of the school, because of people who I worked with at where I worked in Stockholm as well. My wife was from Turkey, and then of course the Turkey and Italy experience. And when I lived in the US, so I speak way less Swedish than I do English, even though I live in Sweden. And I think all of these experiences definitely colored the way I approach people as well. It's not the Swedish talk about the weather kind of way. It's more like, how are you? Like, what are you doing? What, like, can I get to know you? Rather than can we just talk about things that no one actually really cares about, if we're going to be honest.
yeah, I shared this with you in our pre-chat. I was like, I often don't ask people what they do for a living. In fact, I often say it this way. I say, it's social protocol to ask me what you do for a living, but I actually don't care. What are you passionate about? And often by putting pretext into that conversation, people realize you don't care about their day job, which they were going to tell you about that they're passionate about. You're actually looking for the thing that no one actually asked them ever about.
Yeah.
And then the amount of amazing information that comes out of people. Like, I asked this lady at work today, like, what are you passionate about? And she's like, I love horses. And but I just let her go on a rant about how much she loves horses. Now, I've got no interest in horses, but I have an interest in people,
Yeah.
what they're passionate about, because I'm a person. I have passion about making things with my hands, right? And so you can't sort of expect to find connection with people unless
Absolutely.
you put yourself out there and you share and connect on your different passions and that sort of thing. So that's a tool I use. But in your
I'm totally gonna steal that, by the way.
there you go, people. You can steal if you like. You can call it the Justin method. But I want to talk about your videos, because you're a very good communicator in your videos. No, like, in my opinion, at least, anyway. It's very well. I mean, you don't often see your face. You see it maybe for a little intro and then maybe a little bit at the end. But I think the way you talk, the way you communicate your ideas and what you're doing and how you're doing it, where does that all come from? Being that you're an introvert and all.
Facing my fears, for sure. I mean, as you said, you hardly ever see my face. If you go back to the old videos, I if I had to film something full body, I tried to crop out my face because I wasn't comfortable. I felt really awkward, and I mean, to be frank, I was a really awkward kid growing up. I was like the tallest guy in the class. I was this long and gangly kind of caricature of a human being. So I felt I never really fit. So seeing myself on video, and of course hearing myself when editing narration, it's just a nightmare. It's awful. Oh my God, I hate it so much. But then I work with this, and because, I mean, first of all, thank you for thinking I'm a good communicator. I feel I'm at best mediocre, and I want to improve. But that, just because I want to improve, part of that was like, I need to put more of myself in the video. So I started shifting over to, I mean, doing a video here and there where I at least say something into the camera, where I'm what do you call, like a talking head, so to speak. And now, at least, if I don't have anything more than my hands as a part of me in the video, I try at least to make a good intro and maybe even an outro where I am actually part of the video. And I noticed, I thought about this before as well when we talked about like talking with other people. And when you ask about someone's passion, I think anyone who's been to like a maker fair or maker central, like where we met, those kind of conversations happen so easily because people, they don't give a flying F what you do for as a profession, unless maybe you're a professional YouTuber and whatever. But they care about what do you do, what are your passions, what do you create, like. And I think the more of that we can shift over into regular life, like you're doing, I think that the more fruitful these conversations are going to be, because you're not going to ask someone like what their job is and they tell, oh, I'm a cashier at the local grocery store. You're not going to hear them have a half an hour passionate talk about that, most likely. Maybe some people, but most likely not.
Yeah, but I mean, like that same cashier could be really into Pokemon.
Absolutely.
And like when you're talking with someone that's lighting up about something they never get to talk about because no one gives a shit about, no one's even asked that question, right? It makes you, and then all of a sudden they feel guilty because it's a bit funny. Like they feel guilty they've been going on for like 20 minutes about Pokemon. And then all of a sudden you get a chance to share what you're passionate about. And there's a connection there. And I think I regardless of whether the the passions are the same, I think that is a really valuable thing to like opening yourself up to engage in that type of communication with people.
And I think it's what you say. It's about being interested in people as well. Like you don't have to be interested in horses. Like I had yesterday I was sitting up way past my bedtime talking with a friend in the west coast of the US, and she was showing me pictures from her Japanese catalogs of kimonos and Japanese ways of living, and it's like, of course it's all in Japanese. I don't understand a word, and I don't really care that much about kimonos. I mean, sure, they're nice, but whatever. But like the layout and the colors of these magazines, they were just amazing creations, and we could have a really cool conversation about things we both appreciate without it being specifically about kimonos, just because that's what they were about. And I think finding these commonalities in things, I mean, sure, you're not interested in Pokemon, but I bet you could find something within the sphere of Pokemoning that you can actually get started about, like, yeah, that's super fascinating. I never thought about that. And if all you do is ask people what they do for a living, you're never going to have that kind of conversation.
Right. I mean, you used to be in telemarketing, is that right?
Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Yes, I worked 6 years in telemarketing.
So,
which was
do you think you get some? Do you think you get some of your user? Because I can definitely hear the intro like coming, like a little bit of a telemarketer.
Oh yeah.
Like, hello, this is Daniel from One Call or IceNet or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly. No, I started telemarketing when I was 19, and I was still very much a product of my adolescence. I was an extremely awkward, very, very quiet, socially terrified. I was going to say scared, but I think terrified is a better explanation of the kind of person I was. And telemarketing really helped bring me out of myself and actually gave me a voice of being able to like, hey, I can talk to people. And I talk to people. I don't just act like a recorded message, like a lot of telemarketers just read, from a script. I actually spoke with people and often spoke about a lot of things that had nothing to do with what I was selling or what I was trying to inform them about, just because I felt like I can actually talk to people. This is amazing. And of course, I carried a lot of that with me when I started. I mean, now I have a passion for teaching, not just with YouTube. I've taught and I've had stage presentations and whatnot, and through design held workshops and whatnot. And it's extremely liberating. It's still extremely frightening, even when I stand and I'm going to record my narration or record an intro. I still get a little bit of cold sweats, and I do retakes upon retakes because I didn't quite nail it, but it's still extremely liberating because I can have this outpouring of me. I don't try to be anyone else. I can be unashamed, what is it called, unapologetically me, and that is something that I feel I didn't really have growing up. So maybe that's a good realization to come to it at an older age as well.
Yeah, and I think one thing I remember you saying to me was the fact that, the first, Maker Fair in was it San Francisco, was it?
Yeah, the first one I went to was like 2013.
Yeah, something like that. And
I think that was before you. Maybe is what you were thinking about.
yeah, you mentioned that no one really knew there, and then you decided to put your face more in videos, and then later in other like Maker meetups, people are like, "Hey, it's Daniel!" Like, "Hey, it's nice to meet you." Right? So
I was a little bit maybe ignorant the first time I went. Like, yes, of course people are gonna know me, and I had stickers made up, and it's like, no one knows who I am. And I went back with one less sticker than I brought there, and that's because I stuck a sticker in a random light bulb.
that was like me at Maker Central. Like, I had no idea. I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't even bring stickers.
I still have your really cool braided bracelet thing.
Yeah, which
it's
no
actually
one
hanging.
wears.
I don't actually. I don't wear it.
They need a rape whistle or something.
That's dark. That's so dark.
Well, at least it's there for that occasion, right?
Yes, sure. I don't wear it. I actually have it clipped to my hiking backpack. So it's actually like a good. I mean, you should have a piece of rope with you, and I guess I'm gonna call it a bear the rape whistle. Thank you very much.
I love it.
So it is actually it's one of those things you hope you never need, but it's a good thing to have with you. So thank you.
I mean, I think that's something that we can also take note of, right? Because, like, you go to one of your first Maker meetups, and people are like, "Who's this guy?" Whatever. And then you go to Maker Central, and you by this time you've been showing your face, and communication, of course, is not just words, right? It's visual. And so we look at our, people look at your social media, they look at your videos, and then to be able to then meet in person is like the trifecta, like to putting it through, because there'll be a lot of comments, there'll be a lot of like, like, for example, if you're in Facebook groups, there's a lot of comments and things going on there, and you feel like you have a bit of a connection with people. But then them in reality, I think a lot of people sort of like, wow, like, he's exactly how he is, or oh, he's nothing like he is, or
exactly. Yeah,
I think the disconnect, like for me, the disconnect, if like you told me about this old Tony and I was like, I'd never seen his face. And of course I said, I'm saying to myself after we chatted, I'm like, do not Google this.
No, did you
not Google this? And I Googled it, didn't I?
Of course you did.
And it destroyed my world. It destroyed my world. I did not want to know what this old Tony looked like.
I told you. I love this old Tony, and he's an amazingly handsome gentleman. But there is a disconnect between the voice and the way he looks, and it's impossible to get out of your head.
Oh, I was so disappointed now. Like,
so to anyone who's listening to this, take heed. Do not do what Justin did. Do not Google it.
Please do not Google it. If you're a fan of this old Tony or anything, please do not Google that. That ruined. I will never watch another video of his because of that, and that's just sad.
That's the most important takeaway from this entire podcast.
It is for sure. I think too, though. I mean, I feel like we often need to learn how to ask the right questions to engage with people, and I think once we do that, we can build our self-confidence up and
Yeah.
really stand on our own 2 feet. And I think that in our community, there's a lot of introverts, a lot of them, and they will classify themselves as introverts. They're very happy to sit on like one of the Facebook groups or on Discord or whatever and just type away and write some comments and things like that. But when it comes to meeting face to face, of course, being extroverts, it's hard. It's hard to get in there. And I, like me being an extrovert, I can't really say like like just get in there, guys. It'll be worth it. I know that speaking with a lot of other people, they've found it hard. Like they found it overwhelming going to some of these bigger events, but at the same time, they would not have not gone. Like they needed to go, and it was a great experience. But at the same time, it was scary and intimidating, and all these things because you're pushed out of your comfort zone.
So, and I think that's something as well. Taking that small step, it might seem like a giant step, but still, I mean, go to a maker event, be completely anonymous, just get free swag bags from the sponsors and leave. Maybe next year you come back, and I mean, unfortunately, Maker Central couldn't happen this year, as we all know. But maybe next year you come back and you recognize people who were there last year, and you say something. You join the and have a few beers in the hotel bar after the whole fair and everything. And slow by slow, you kind of soften these fears inside you, and you speak up. And I think it's really amazing. Actually, to make an example of Maker Central last year, I met a woman there. I think she was from Britain somewhere, and she recognized me, and she was like, "I don't usually talk to people." And then she talked, and I think we had like a half an hour conversation. And she talked about like all of her passions and what she was doing, and related to like she had seen all my videos and all of that. And she was a really fascinating person. And I couldn't help but thinking like it's such a shame that you have this view of yourself that you're not someone who talk to people, because you're obviously a very fascinating person who has a lot to give. And I would hope at least that more people in the maker community find that it is a welcoming place and a very non-judgmental place. Like if you think what you're doing is silly, it's probably not. People are going to find it really, really cool regardless.
I think that's one advantage we have in our community is like people are so interested. Like you could be doing weird machining stuff, hand carving, you could be acid etching, you could be, doing electronics, it doesn't really matter what it is. The great thing about our community is, people are hungry to know more and hear more, and because they can be inspired by certain things you do. Like you may think you're a nobody, and all of a sudden someone who's, you perceive as a somebody is, copying your technique that you used in a project. And I think that's a super powerful thing. And that's why communication with others is really important, through not only through social media and that sort of thing, but more importantly, face to face, and through, through your video content as well. If you do video content, make sure you show your face, no matter how awful and hideous you think you are.
I mean, frankly, just take a shower, comb your hair, that's fine. Like, or in some cases, don't even do that, and it's going to work out for you anyway.
Look, to people that are scared about doing, like, putting themselves on video, just keep in mind I was naked in one of my videos, so you can't get any worse than that. Pretty much, that's
you put out some unreasonable body standards for people to keep up with, huh?
I wondered why at 4 minutes 32 the video analytics seem to all stop.
It would be really interesting if you could track if people actually went back and watched one segment over and over again.
Oh, I had the feeling that that was the case. At least the women, probably. That's tickets. I wanted to get onto a little bit of your creative process because you do like a lot of different stuff, Daniel. Like, I mean, you're not a one-trick pony. So I wanted to maybe see if I could delve into your creative process and try and drag up sort of ideas of how you come with an inspiration and idea and then like form it into reality. Now, you talk a lot about CAD.
Yeah.
That must be a big part of that process. Do you want to talk us through it?
It's definitely a part of the creative process, but it's quite at the tail end of the creative process, I would say. Yes, I do a lot. I do a lot of stuff, as anyone who's seen my videos knows, and I think it's mainly because I get this idea of like, hey, that looks cool, or I see something, or like I mentioned now about the Japanese kimono, like those illustrations and that layout looks cool, and then my brain is like, you should do layout too. And it's like that for everything. It's like a pathological inability to just not let things go without at least exploring them a little bit. And some things they become this end up being YouTube videos, and other things they died the idea's death in a notebook somewhere because it was a really stupid idea. But at least I had the idea, and I actually thought about it, and I spent some energy. And I think when you're in that frame of mind, cross-pollination of ideas is natural. So you there is some nugget in that stupid thing that you can probably use in another project. So when I start doing something, it's almost always this like harebrained idea that turns into a really cool thing, and that might not be so harebrained in the end. But in terms of just the actual sitting down making the thing, it's hardly ever planned until I decide that I really want to do it. I've collected enough information from, like Wikipedia, Instructables, other YouTube channels and whatnot, that I feel like, yeah, I could do this.
Yeah.
And then I start planning, incessantly doing, if it's like a build project, I start doing like the CAD work, and I'm going to build a box for an Arduino. Of course, I have a CAD model of an Arduino, so I know exactly how it's going to fit exactly in the box. So that's kind of the slightly obsessive part of that. That's probably could be tuned down a little bit. But then it's just getting it done, and I'm working to hone that process because I know there's a lot of gaps, especially when it comes to the video output. I find myself often when I edit the video, and I get compliments like, "Oh, you have so good animations in your videos and whatnot." But people don't realize I often make the animation because I just completely forgot to shoot something, or I shot something but my head was in the way, so I need to kind of find a way around that. So I want to work more about, like, actually what you mentioned as well, like just framing things in camera. It's like, okay, what do I need to capture to be able to tell this story that I want to tell? And usually I don't think about the story as I'm shooting it. I think about how am I going to piece together a story from the material I have, and I feel that's a little bit backwards. So that's something I'm trying to work on now as well. But of course, there's a lot of sketching. There's a lot of iterating and talking with people, and like, is this stupid? How would I do this? What do you think of this? And just having that communication with other people, and some who are not like self-proclaimed makers in any way, but that are just like inspiring people to talk to, and people who actually have opinions, even though sometimes they're completely stupid opinions, but at least it's something to help you get further in your process as well.
Yeah, I think like you made me think about just now, I was putting my son to sleep, and he's got this Charmander, and you squeeze its hand and it goes cha cha, and then the tail lights up a little bit. It's a soft toy, right? It's a teddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the mouth, has lights in it as well. And I was like, why wouldn't it be so great if I could use what I learned in the sofa beer fridge to turn this soft toy into a weapon? So I was like, so like as I'm sitting there waiting for my son to fall asleep, I'm singing some nursery rhymes and stuff for him, right? I'm thinking, right, the voice control module, I could just buy another one of those because I know how to work that. And then
Yeah.
that would be easy because I could group the voice commands to do certain things. And I just use an Arduino to like run some valves for the gas supply and maybe a capacitor and a switch for like the sparking and everything. I went into detail. I was so excited. And then I went on to YouTube and I'm like, God damn it, someone's already done it. But yeah, but
that's sometimes that can be so soul crushing as well, when you thought you had this amazing original idea and then no, it's been done. Oh well.
admittedly the guy used like an air freshener thing and just pulled the stuffing out of it and then just shoved like a automatic air freshener dispenser in there. So admittedly I could fine tune that idea, but man,
I say do it anyway. Just like, because you're always going to put your spin on it. You're going to put your heart and soul into what you're doing. It's going to be the Garage Avengers, crazy, insane Pokemon weaponized whatever plush toy.
Yeah, voice controlled.
Exactly. I have a project where, I mean, everyone knows Jimmy DiResta.
Who's Jimmy? Is Jimmy Dresden?
Yeah, it's this crazy New Yorker who hardly anyone knows him. But I think someday he's going to be really big on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I made a phone amplifier, like, so you just put your phone in and it amplifies it through a brass horn. And I had worked on this video for weeks and I was really happy with the video. And I was like, okay, this is going to be done probably in a couple of days and I can just upload it and it's going to be really good. And it's done really well. I did upload it. But a day or two before I released that video, Jimmy DiResta released a video where he made a phone amplifier from an old horn and I was gutted. It was just like the worst day of my life. But then it's like, then you have to realize, okay, Jimmy does what he does and he does great videos, great material, but that's not me. So I still had to release it because it was my creation still. And of course I got the trolls of like, yeah, you're just copying Jimmy DiResta. You don't have any original ideas. But you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt and like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. So
yeah, I feel the same way often when I have like, sometimes I'll line up a guest for this podcast weeks in advance. And then all of a sudden, like the day before I record, they'll come out a podcast with them on it. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, what the fuck? How is this possible? I was like, I thought I had the scoop here, so then I have to, then I have to sit down and listen. So the interesting thing is too, like I get annoyed a little bit, but then I also get this like spur to like, okay, how can I be different?
Yeah.
Right. So for example, last week, Brett was on the show. Now, he had just recently been on another podcast called the Full Blast Podcast. Now, I sat down and listened to that podcast and I listened to it and I thought, you know what? I think I can take this angle with him instead and it'll be different and it'll be worth listening to, even those who have listened to him on this other podcast or have been following him on Fools with Tools for, the years and so on.
Yeah.
They will get something from this. And you know what? In the end, they did. I mean, I got countless messages from people saying, great episode, and, got a lot from that, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, like, it just shows you, like, you can't get stuck that someone has done it before you.
Yeah.
You just have to do it in your own way and find another way to do it so that you can make it yours.
Yeah. And I think also, I mean, we could spend this entire podcast about talking about my projects, about your projects, about how to do things and which glue smells nicer, and all of that. And it would probably be a really good podcast. But I must say I thank you, and I much more appreciate having a conversation about things which are not just directly making, but that are actually supporting the whole community of making, and supporting I mean us as people as well, and just how do you become a functioning human being in this crazy world of ours?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many people struggling with that, and I think a lot in our community too. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we have a lot of people that, like I said, consider themselves introverts and feel uncomfortable getting involved in the bigger, wider world. And I think if some of the things we talked about today can help them, that's awesome. But I mean, as we're talking about people in our community, I mean, are there any sort of everyday creative heroes that can inspire you in your work?
I read about this like when you sent out, and I actually had a good thought about like who actually inspires me. And first and foremost, it's people who are not in my community. It's my friends around me who do just random things, who are not in any way makers, but are just inspiring people to talk to. Because frankly, I love makers, and I love what they do, but it can be a little bit like you're boxed in a sense.
Yeah,
you're hearing the same thing, the same story with different tools in different locations, but it's reasonably the same story from different people. But I think in terms of more recently, what I've been more inspired of from the maker community is one maker that I been following now for a little while. I think she was, what was she called before? I keep forgetting that. Her name is Sila Foxlin, and she's built like a wooden corset and then built canoes. And now more recently, she's been working on an unreleased video yet, but she's been releasing parts of it on Instagram about a transparent kayak just made from fiberglass and epoxy with embedded LEDs. It's a light up party kayak, and it's just the most crazy, amazing thing I've ever seen. And stuff like that just blows my mind, seeing people take what you expect of something like, yeah, okay, you build a strip kayak or canoe or whatever it is, but then you take that an extra step and you go completely nuts with it. And I think that's really inspiring to take unexpected approaches. And I have to push also the Maker Monster. He's one of my all-time favorite on YouTube, and he deserves all the possible growth his channel can get, because it's just really, really funny videos, but they're also so filled with soul and good maker tips about what to do with like a lot of things, a lot of electronics and whatnot. It's always a joy when he releases a video, and if he listens to this, release more videos.
Yeah, I haven't seen one from him in a while. So.
Yeah, I know he's been working on some really cool stuff that, again, he releases on Instagram and in the stories there. But I think it's going to be really cool when that finally drops on YouTube.
Yeah, I get where you're at when you're working on something big, for example, or something a bit different. It's taking a bit longer than normal.
Yeah.
I definitely know that feeling.
How long were you working on the sofa again?
18 months. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, actually, I would just want to go a little bit back to what you said a little while ago, is the fact that you're inspired by those outside of the community. I think that is something to take note of, people. I mean, this community is really great, but if you want to be pushed out of your comfort zone and be different, completely different to the others, you need to branch out of this community, and finding those people that are maybe not quite doing a making thing, but they're inspiring. Maybe they're doing something else. They could be even just entrepreneurs running their own business, for example, or people that are like doing nothing to do with creative stuff. but you can see maybe they're sportsmen, and you can see that their push and their drive gets them places. And if you surround yourself around these people, or just absorb their energy, like you can learn a lot from them, and that can help you in your making stuff. So I think I would encourage everyone to also branch outside of the maker circles to try and find people and to be inspired by. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you don't have those kind of people around you, like physically around you, just look at YouTube. I mean, there's so much content there. You can follow. I follow like chemistry channels and science channels and music production and miniature building videos and just all sorts of random things, because it's always some of it is gonna stick somewhere in your brain, and it's gonna help you in what you want to make as well.
Yeah.
You never know what this nugget is that's gonna stick in the end.
And failing that, just go down to the pub and use the Justin method. and find people that you find interesting. And I'm serious, like that. You don't have to find these people on the internet. Literally,
sure.
there could be a guy that's down at a local pub now that could be so inspiring. You just never knew. So I mean,
everyone has a story.
Yep. Let's get into the rapid fire 5. Are you ready?
Go for it. Wait.
Oh, don't tell me. Did it
Shake it off.
It is.
I think my internet connection froze when I did that. So I think that was.
You were like this.
I hope that. That's awesome. I did the Taylor Swift "Shake It Off," but I'm glad that the internet connection completely froze when I did that. No reruns.
the internet is. We're thanking the internet right now.
Yes.
All right, here we go. You ready? Fill in the blank.
Yes.
Creativity is
overrated.
Why did you say that?
Because you can get so stuck on, I'm not being creative, I don't have any creativity, and I think the word creativity is overrated. The concept creativity is innate in all of us, but the word creativity has it can be good, but it can also be a force for putting yourself down because you feel you don't live up to some imaginary image of what creativity is.
Yeah.
Heck, even the way you butter your toast in the morning can be creative. Don't set a high bar. Set the bar for creativity so low that it doesn't even exist.
Love it. What is something people get wrong about you?
That's a really good one. I think primarily that I'm a bit arrogant and a bit of like a know-it-all besserwisser.
Well, what? A besserwisser? What is that?
Yeah, maybe I know it's a German term. It means besser is better, and wisser is like someone who knows something. So better knowing, someone who knows better, basically. I think we borrowed that in Swedish from German. So it's our German listeners will probably know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But I think because
doesn't that prove that you're a know-it-all? Using the German word for know-it-all.
I'm trying to paint a pleasant image of who I am here. Come on. No, but maybe exactly because I'm so willing and so eager to share what I know and what I like, all of that. I think people can a little bit take offense to that as well, that I'm a little bit maybe too over eager, and that can come off as a bit rude and arrogant.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have that, though. I mean, we all excited about our thing and we want to share, and then some people don't get it, and that can come across like that for sure.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to do when you're not being creative?
I don't understand the question. No, I it's very difficult, and I read this question before actually, and I thought about it a lot, even though it's supposed to be a rapid fire question, so it goes a little bit against the grain of that. But I thought about it, and it's like I have a really hard time thinking about it. But I think my favorite thing is flea markets. There is a certain aspect of creativity to flea markets because I'm looking at what I'm buying with a creative eye.
Yeah.
But the act itself isn't especially creative. It's just walking around looking at random shit on tables.
Yeah.
But it's definitely beyond any sort of creativity and making things. Flea markets is like, oh, if I could get a job just being,
Like
I don't
a
know,
picker or something, you know?
exactly, yeah. I've thought many times about, like, should I open like an antiques or as like a secondhand shop, or maybe I can run a workshop and a place like that, like separate the businesses, you know?
Mm.
And that might happen in the future. You never know. I'm accumulating stuff at a rapid rate, and I need to start getting rid of them soon.
What is one project that's completely priceless for you and that you'd never sell?
I don't think I have one.
No?
I think even though I am a little bit of like a hoarder, and I really like both my own projects and the things that I end up buying from aforementioned flea markets, I'm still very, very aware that objects are just objects, and they are very precious to me, but they're not invaluable. I think what's more what's more priceless is the process behind it. Like I would value the video I make of a project far more than the project itself, because that shows more about what goes into this, what is it all about. So, and I think that's, I mean, talking about price, that's why I say no to the vast majority of sponsors, because I don't want to put a price and taint that process in a way. So I'm very, very careful with the very few sponsors that I do present on my channels and that I do actually stand behind.
I think it's something that's become very common answer when people answer this, at least from the maker side of things. I think people are not so much attached to the things they make, but more attached to the process.
Yeah.
So, that just actually makes me really happy, because I think that means that, you know, people are doing it for the right reasons, not for the end result, but doing it for the pure enjoyment of, you know, creating something from their brain, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
And I think it's very easy to get caught up in that, like, oh, I have to make a video and I have to make a project for this video. And no, sometimes, I mean, okay, I can get that you're stuck in the hamster wheel of making videos, but just make a project for yourself now and then. It is quite liberating just to just create without any sort of black cloud hanging over you of shoulds and have tos, and just make something.
Yeah, I absolutely. The last question is probably the hardest one, I think, because it's a bit taboo in some ways, I think, for some people, you know. But what does happiness look like?
I think there are many, many kinds of happiness there, but I think it's small, it's furry, it has claws, and it meows from time to time. That's the epitome of happiness. But
what?
You're not a cat person?
I'm all about the dogs.
Oh, actually, I have no. He escaped. My flatmate has a dog, so I love dogs too. But I think I have a special place in my heart for cats.
Yeah.
But I think happiness is, as a frame of mind, it's a place where I can, like we talked about before, unapologetically be myself. I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. I think that's what pure happiness looks like. And it doesn't matter so much the environment, but just to have that ability, that capability to actually just have that self-expression, basically, without feeling judged for it. I think that's a huge chunk of the pie chart that makes up happiness, for me at least.
Great answers. Thanks so much. I think we're at the end. Where can people find you, Daniel?
Right now in a small apartment in Gothenburg. But on the internet, basically type in switch and lever, either with an ampersand, it's called ampersand, the and sign, or just and wherever you find switch and lever, you find me. So it's on youtube.com/switch and lever, it's on instagram.com/switch and lever, it's on Twitter very, very seldomly, it's on Facebook almost never, but I'm around.
Great. Just want to say thank you for coming on the show, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your story and some insight. I hope you guys got something from this. I want to thank everyone for listening, of course. If you are not following Daniel, please go find him, Switch and Lever, on Instagram at least, people. And
or switch and lever, as some people say. I'm aware that some people mispronounce it, and I'm fine with that.
Are we talking about our American counterparts?
And I'm not. I plead the fifth.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, there'll be links in the show notes anyway, guys. If you want to be one of the cool kids and join the GA Nation, you can do that by heading over to Patreon. Otherwise, you can support me just as much and all the amazing guests that have been on the show and will be on the show in the future by randomly laser engraving a Make Ideas Reality logo into your latest YouTube video. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Or you could just really honestly simply repost and share the podcast. If you do that, then more people become aware of the podcast, and it gives people a bigger platform to be heard. I want to encourage you guys to give me some feedback. You can send your DMs to @GarageAvenger on Instagram. Please go check out Daniel if you haven't already. Links are in the show notes, like I said before. Until next time, keep pushing yourself, keep ballsing up things, keep learning, get inspired, and I'll catch you on the flip side. We're out. Good.
We're out.